Welcome to Title Talk, a podcast for real estate investors where we cover tips, tricks, and trends in the industry.
This podcast is all about providing valuable insights to help you maximize your investment opportunities.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, Title Talk is the place to stay in the know and get inspired.
So grab your headphones, tune in, and let's talk title.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm excellent. Nice to see you. You know, I love doing Title Talk because I get to hang out with you, but I'm sad because Title Talk, we usually get to hang out. We're side by side. We get to, just be in each other's energy. We vibe in. And it's like, it's strange when we're not in the same spot. You know what I mean?
And there's no puppies licking my toes.
No puppies licking. Also, no puppies licking your toes. No Bobby licking your toes. There's all kinds of.
It definitely feels a little weird without being in person, but I know we're both in hot places today. I'm in Arizona, and
and I'm in in case anyone's wondering why I look like I'm on a in a third world country here with all these fans. I'm in a third world country.
Your audio sounds good.
I'm in Canada. Okay, Dina didn't know what to say. I'm in Canada, and apparently there's no air conditioning in any buildings in Canada because it never gets hot. It never crosses like 75, right? So
that's wild.
So it's disgusting. It's so hot, and there's no reprieve. So I've got like multiple fans going right now, and I'm still just swassing out over here. What do you do?
Oh, you just figure it out. Order more
fans. Well, I'm excited about today's episode because we have recurring guests back with us.
This is our first
time we had a recurring guest. You guys really loved Celena Nash last time, and we had her on. I think she smashed it. She did such a great job helping us understand the legalities of the real estate business, and especially in the investment space. And there's so much going on. I mean, just recently we have South Carolina, rubber stamping the ban on wholesale, and Pennsylvania just requires just put out that you now require a real estate license to wholesale. And so I want to talk to Celena about workarounds, the legalities of workarounds. I keep hearing this statement: if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And so, these workarounds that people are presenting, they sound good, but are they safe? Are they legal? And do they absolve you of any potential liability or situation from a real estate counsel coming after you for what they determine to be illegal brokering? Now, before we bring her up, I want to just set the tone for the audience that's listening. There is no doom and gloom here, guys. We're not preaching a doom and gloom sermon over here. This is not about wholesaling is going to be banned all across the United States. That's not what we're saying. Okay, there's select markets where they are imposing some strict guidelines or rules. And it's not all of the markets. It's a few. It's a small few. And that's it for now.
And I think it's an opportunity to level up, right? Like,
yes.
We can talk about how you can do this from like a legal and ethical perspective. And it's about leveling up all of our game.
Yeah. And I think Celena can help us with that understanding as well. So without further ado, let's have her come up and join us. Celena Nash, welcome back to Title Talk. How are you?
Hi, guys. How are you?
Doing excellent. How about yourself?
Not bad. I guess I'm good. I'm talking to you guys. I'm good.
How warm is Florida?
It is extremely hot. I think today it was the heat index was like 102, 103. So, but we have air conditioning. So unlike we actually have air conditioning. I think mine is on 73 right now. But so I send some breeze your way.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's very kind of you. Very kind. So, Celena, I don't know if you could hear us backstage, but there's, a lot of things that have just recently transpired with respect to wholesaling. And I wanted to get your opinion on what you think are good workarounds, or where we should be paying attention to maybe change the way we do business. You know, Jerry Norton, a good friend of ours, is pivoting his entire wholesale strategy to taking every property down. Now he's closing on every property with his own cash, and then he's reselling on the MLS. And he's using that as his, because he's well capitalized. I mean, Jerry Norton's is a rich guy. And so, but here's the thing, wholesaling is an entry-level business strategy for real estate investing. And not everybody is going to have Jerry Norton money. And so I wanted to open the floor to you to see what your thoughts are about this, with Pennsylvania just having, you know, brought this into the world, into their market, as well as South Carolina now rubber stamping the ban on wholesale. What are your thoughts?
So first, I would say that, as we talked about the last time, you have to be creative when you're in this circle. So being creative is number one. And you're absolutely right. I think the changes are going to make people who are really not dedicated to wholesaling and not dedicated to being creative and putting work in, is going to eliminate those from the market. So it's a good thing, it's a bad thing. But I think the first thing that you should take into consideration anytime that you're doing this, obviously, as you know, liability is my thing. The first thing you want to do is eliminate is, how are you exposing yourself? How are you taking the interest in the contract? So that's the first thing, establishing how you're going to be taking the interest, because it's important. Because if you are sued, then who are they suing? What kind of assets are attached to it, right? So if you want to start that process, and let's say you started with one of your LLCs, that limit liability company that's well established, well, that wouldn't be a good idea. You want to have something or a vehicle that you are doing these activities under that maybe they don't have much assets. And I'm not telling you to do it that way so you could avoid paying out, but I am telling you to be smart about the way that you approach it. So that's the first thing. If you're going to do it, always take it in a manner of how, using your vehicle, however you're going to invest, make sure you don't have a lot of assets attached to it.
And I want to use the metaphor of, like, if you have a teenager in your household that's just learning how to drive, do you give them the keys to the Rolls Royce, or do you give them the keys to the hoopty?
Absolutely.
Right? Because, like, if it's going to get destroyed or if something's going to happen, we might as well just have the thing out there that we really don't have any exposure on, right? It's essentially what we're saying here, correct?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
Don't go invest with your most prized possession, thinking that there is no liability. There is going to be liability. And as I always say, disclosure is really important. But with all the bans and everything coming along, I think the one thing that you can do to be creative, it's a few things I have in mind, but being creative in the sense that, let's say you do have to close and you do have to purchase. Hard money is always there, always an option if that's what you need to do. Hard money, always available. Now, you may have to do that, and you have to be creative in how you realize a profit on that, because you are going to be paying higher interest and everything else. However, that is another method that you can use, is getting money to actually make the purchase, and then you flip it. You purchase it first. Once you purchase it, then you sell it. Then that gives you the opportunity to market it, right? Another way that I have been screaming for years, that is thing that people just don't hear me on, is approaching the seller, because a lot of times these are sellers who are in distress, and setting up an option to purchase, an option to own or co-own for a certain time period. And that allows the seller, you, to be on the deed as well. It allows you, the wholesaler, to be on the deed, because you're paying something into consideration. And sometimes you don't have to pay a lot of money up front. Let's say they do have a mortgage. Let's say you tell them, I'll pay 3 months or 4 months in advance for my opportunity to put my name, even if it's a small interest on the deed, you still have the ability to market it, because now you are an owner. You kind of have to be creative to skirt around it. My thing is always, if it's another option, would be seller financing, right? The seller will go ahead and deed you over the entire property, deeding you the property. Now you become the owner, but the seller will actually hold a mortgage on the property. That's another option that you could potentially look at. So again, all the laws and all the regulations that are coming up, I think the most important part to focus on is not getting discouraged about it, being creative about it. And again, you're going to find people who are going to get intimidated and scared. And not to say you should break the law, because you know I would never advise you to do that. However, be creative with your approaches and actually have the ability to think outside of the box. Wholesaling should always do that, but most people have gotten comfortable with the approaches to handle wholesaling. I just think we have to be a little bit more creative and understanding what the laws are as well.
So, sorry, are you talking about the installment method then, correct? In that
is what some people call it, installment method. Yes, it's called.
Okay. Go ahead, Dina. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no. Well, and I was going to just say from a strategy perspective too, you know, there's two things that I think of right away. One is you got to buy deals deeper, and two, you got to know how to comp.
Yes. Yes. Dina, you are, I mean, right. I think you just won all the awards for that piece of advice because at the end of the day, that's what we should have been doing in the first place. Right. We should have always been approaching this as let's just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks kind of business model. This should be intentional. This should be, I'm going to look at the spaghetti. I'm going to pick up the sticky pieces. I'm going to walk over to the wall and I'm going to put it there because I know it's going to stick. Right. And how do we do that? We comp our properties well. We understand our numbers. We know what a good deal is and we line up capital. We have somebody in the chat asking about being capitalized for transactional funding. I have a transactional funding company, a $20 million available to wholesalers across the nation. If you guys need my funds to double close properties, go to flipcashtoday.com and I would happily double close your transaction for you for 1%. It's just a 1% flat fee. It's one of the most inexpensive transactional funding resources out there. There's many out there that charge 3% to 5%, but I'm flat fee 1. Celena, let any of your clients know as well. But in my opinion, I think that actually the transactional funding feels better than the installment method because I have some questions for you about that, right? Because we're having somebody now deed a property over to us. And we had a big kerfuffle on one of our other podcasts about this because another influencer came and was saying the exact thing. He said, hey, we can do this thing called the installment method and you can have the seller deed you the property. And then because wholesaling is one of these things where it takes time to be able to sell your deal, right? Like occasionally you might not even get the best one. Like after you contract it, you go in and you look and you're like, oh my God, this house, where it needs way more than we originally anticipated. And so now you're in a situation, you're in a pickle, but you've been deeded this property. What does that do to the title? I think Dina and Celena, if you guys could both talk about, does this make a dirty deed done dirt cheap?
You want
dirt. No, go right ahead.
No, I don't think it makes it dirty. Again, it doesn't. Doing the wholesale, I don't think it eliminates you doing your title search and doing everything, your due diligence, right? So as a part of it, even if you're doing the transaction and you're doing the transfer, I don't think it makes the title dirty per se. Again, most of the time, you're probably not going to get a clean title when you're doing the wholesale. Putting your name on the deed doesn't eliminate any of that stuff. With that being said,
but will they be able to get title insurance on it with those kinds of transfers?
Yes, the transfers don't eliminate the ability to get a title policy. The transfer may make one person look at it a little differently because that is one of the things that I say is a red flag when you see multiple transfers for a title or for a property. That's a red flag to me sometimes. However, when it is such a way that I can follow the chain of title, when I'm reviewing title, when I'm looking at the title search, if I can follow the chain of title, that does not make the title not insurable if it had multiple transactions. Now, it does become an issue to clean up because if there are defects on the title and you have to go back a few chains of title just to actually establish what it is, it may be a little bit more work on the end of the attorney or the title company. But in my opinion, it does not eliminate the ability to get title insurance.
Awesome. What about you, Dina? What are your thoughts on that?
So
On the conveyancings?
in my opinion, it's not, since it's dealt outside of escrow and it's an agreement with the seller, it's not something that we're typically going to look at to create for you out of the gate, right? So it depends on how you actually get that done, and then we evaluate that on like a case by case basis. And then it's going to probably depend on the kind of loan you've got too, and the lender's requirements.
Because I wonder, right? Like for instance, if I did the installment method here in Arizona and I gave a seller $1,000 and I got, deeded the property, right? And let's just say a month into it, I'm like, man, I just can't do this deal. It's not going to work. Hey, seller, you get to keep the $1,000. I'm going to deed you back the property. Now you've seen a transfer to Jamil Damji back to homeowner. Would Fidelity Title typically insure the next sale for that seller? Would they look at it and be like, fishy?
We would definitely look at it as a red flag, and here's why, especially right now. So when it comes to fraud, it's definitely a flag. So we've talked about, land fraud in the past on Title Talk. Well, what we're seeing right now is FSBO fraud. So where somebody is literally, like, this just happened, and I have a little memo on it from today. So a property was worth $757,000. They sold it for FSBO for $9,000. Then it transferred multiple times to multiple people. Then it goes to title for $230,000 as a sale. So they looked at that and they were like, something's wrong. Well, all of it was fraud. So somebody was impersonating the original seller who had no intent of selling the property at all.
How does that get unraveled? Like what's the process of unraveling that? Celena, I'd pass that back to you, and then Dina, if you have anything to add to it afterwards. But what would you do in that case, Celena?
So if it is fraud, so now you have a lot of issues. So the first thing you're going to do is call Dina, because now you need to file a title claim on the property. I do want to say this: when there are transfers back and forth, right? So let's say that you do enter into that contract that you were referring to. This is why it's important for you to do it through a title company, or for you to do it with an attorney or someone who's actually looking at the deed and how it was transferred. Because just because it's going from one entity to the other, and let's say the consideration wasn't much, most of the time you don't need to put the entire consideration, but you do worry about transfer taxes when you're doing one transaction, other transactions. So that could be another red flag, that now you're having these multiple transactions, because transfer taxes come into play. So they don't look at transfer taxes as, oh, it's just a friendly transaction for one person to the other. No, we want to look at it at the value of the property and whether or not you pay proper consideration and for your actual transfer tax. So that does come into play. Now, with that being said, this is why I don't think it's a bad idea for you to take a small interest in the property as opposed to you taking the entire property. If you're going to take the entire property, I have done this for years. Seller financing, again, it takes a very good understanding of what you're doing, making sure that seller is comfortable and understanding and knowledgeable with what's taking place. Now, the seller holding the mortgage, that allows you to take the entire deed. However, remember your transfer tax that you will have to take into play. But that would allow you to market the property, and it also allows you to take full ownership and allow the seller to step away. But let's say that you do decide to change your mind, having that type of transaction will make it a lot more difficult for you to walk away from. So that's like the downfall of actually taking that approach. So the installment sometimes works, sometimes it's not, just depending on what your intent. And keeping in mind, one thing that I think is being missed here, probably except in PA, is that a lot of this is in play, these laws, these regulations that's coming up, is mostly to protect consumers or to protect homeowners for residential. This likely don't have any impact, South Carolina or anywhere else, on commercial transactions, multifamily. So those things can still flow and your business continue to grow You just have to be extremely careful when it comes to actual residential. And again, I get it to a certain extent that they're trying to protect the consumer, bottom line, consumer from fraudulent transfer, not understanding what's going on. And then you have the realtors in their ears as well, saying that they're not, this person has a license and they're making a fee and they are being eliminated or their fee are being decreased as a result of the wholesale. So yeah.
Okay, that's great insight. So definitely some. Hi, Bobby. We can't hear you, brother.
Can't hear you. Bobby's joining us. Who's going to join us next? We never know.
There it is. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Cool. So I just want to, Celena, your audio sounds like it's far away. What's your audio source?
My audio source is I believe it's coming from the camera right now.
If there's anything we can switch to that's closer to you, that would be better.
Hold on.
Sorry to interrupt the show. I just,
Bobby,
she left.
let us get.
Oh my
I
gosh.
offended her.
She'll be back. No, she'll be back.
She'll be back.
What does your T-shirt have on it, Bobby?
This is
Fruits.
fruits. It's my orange, apple. Well, broccoli's not a fruit, and then a banana. It's a company that I like called Burn Slow, and they partnered with this. I thought it was just a cool shirt, and then I found out that they partnered with a local nonprofit that feeds homeless people and made this, and all the proceeds go to feeding the homeless, which is
I love
sick.
that.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
That's really
Welcome,
cool.
Celena.
That was an awesome plug.
Yeah, for real. Burnslow.co.
That's really cool.
Okay, so is my audio better?
Yeah, I think before it kind of sounded like muffled. That sounds a little bit better. Maybe come closer to your computer if you're down to. I don't know. Or bring the computer closer to you.
And then I do like Eddie's question too in the chat box.
I think, yeah, let's see. Try one more time. Celena, let's hear you talk. Muted
lost
now.
it all together. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. It's the heat, man. I'm telling you, the heat's just breaking everything. No, we can't hear you now. And it doesn't say she's muted. So maybe leave and come back again, because it did work when you first came back.
Now.
There we go.
Now there we go. Yay, maybe victory.
Okay. So I
Yeah,
changed the phone.
You're fine. You're good.
Okay, so I just changed microphone, so that should be
Awesome.
Just don't worry about it. It's all good.
cool. Oh yeah, for you.
There we go.
Continue on with time.
All right.
Thanks, Bobs.
There was a question.
Yeah, so Eddie asked about title monitoring services. I hadn't even heard of these. Are you guys familiar with the title monitoring service? And
Yeah.
I could actually really use this for my properties, because I never want to have to think about somebody coming and doing some fraudulent transfers on my properties. So what do you guys know about this?
Maricopa County was one of the first that did this. And now I feel like it's happening everywhere. So I think in Arizona, every county is covered now. So it's done through the recorder's office. And all you have to do is type in your name, your email address, and it monitors anything that you're on. And so you get alerted. I've had people that have already told me, if I would have had a system like this in place, I wouldn't have had title fraud, literally.
So do you have to actively go in and activate it for it to work, though?
You sign up. It's a free service.
Okay.
Yeah, I can find the link and put it in the chat for the Arizona stuff, but it's happening all over the country. They're following suit. I think we started a trend.
Florida has it in place as well. Most of the counties have the same thing. All you have to do is opt in. Go onto the website, put your email in, verifies that it's you, and they do the same thing and monitor for you. Free service, which is good.
Yep, it's called
Eddie,
Title Alert.
A title alert. Okay, Eddie, I want to thank you for that nugget of value there, because, guys, any one of you in the chat right now that owns a property, go opt in at your local county recorder's office, because Why would you not? It's free. And then you got peace of mind. I mean, that's so funny enough, right? I made a post today about an article that the Wall Street Journal had made about title insurance and title insurance fees, and the how payouts were like 3% of total insurance claims for title policies, and they're pounding on their chest saying too expensive. It's they shouldn't be making that much money if they're only paying out 3% in claims. And that when the Wall Street Journal comes and says something like that, now that creates kind of like a domino effect. Well, are people going to feel that way as well? Listen, I've had a situation where title insurance saved my absolute butt. And so I never have a problem paying for title insurance. So what are your thoughts on this? Because I mean, this is one of these things where having title insurance is necessary, and who cares if only 3% of claims are getting paid out? That's good. That means that title insurance is working, right? It means that people are being careful. Like, am I missing something here, or what are your guys' thoughts on that?
It's no option. If you ask me, I don't think it's an option not to get title insurance. I can give you stories after stories where title insurance saved a lot of people. In fact, we have a scenario case that we are representing a party on where the husband was not notified that the daughter transferred the interest in the property after the mom passed. And here we are, whole transaction passed by, to the transfer has taken place. The husband was not aware of any of this. And once the husband found out, obviously he filed a lawsuit against the current owner, and that current owner and the daughter, he named the daughter as well, was his stepdaughter, but they named all three parties, but now the insurance kick in. So for the innocent party, which is the person who's holding the title right now, all they had to do is pay a claim, pay for the title policy up front. So now they have that claim covered. They don't have to come out of pocket with the attorney fees and costs to try to litigate and to clear interest. That's why it's necessary. Although title searches took place, everything took place, what didn't take place unfortunately, when you're doing the title search and you're doing the closings, although most people get a title commitment, they think that it's golden. Title commitment doesn't guarantee anything except that title was reviewed, title was examined. You still have to do your due diligence. And that means that sometimes when you're looking at the probate documents, you have to determine whether or not every interested party was a part of that transaction, making sure that they received notice, making sure they signed a waiver of some sort. If that didn't take place, that's a red flag. So when you're doing your closing, you need to make sure everything is proper. Just because your title search reveals, and this is why sometimes it's bad when you're doing things on your own without someone at experience, whether it's a title company or an attorney, you run into issues where you're just looking at a title like, oh, this person owned it, they transferred it here. Oh, that's all clean now. Well, again, that scenario is the exact reason why you should always get title insurance, because title was searched, title was done, everything looked clean. However, that due diligence did not take place where the title company did not go beyond the actual title commitment to look and ensure that those documents or the chain of title was actually clear. But for the person the innocent party who owns the property, it's a good thing because they have that title policy in place and their interest is going to be protected.
Well, the thing I just keep thinking over is you got to read the report.
That right there is.
You got to read the report too, guys.
Yeah.
But
you have people who do title all the time, right? They do real estate closing just like a process. And not to knock anyone with systems in place, but not all the time someone experienced is going to look at that title report. And not all the time someone is going to look at beyond like that surface, because they have to close 6, 7 closings. They have like a whole bunch to look at. So they just go through it to make sure it's customary, make sure everything looks good. However, if that attorney were to pull the actual probate document, you would see that she was married, and you will also see that the decedent was married, and you also see the husband was nowhere on any of those documents. That person, the husband, has more interest in the property than the daughter had in the property, but they allowed the daughter to sign, and again, the chain of title just continued to go on. Things like that can happen. The title
had the father and the mother divorced?
No, they were still married at the time. It was the stepdaughter, like it was the wife.
Passed.
Mm-hmm.
The
It was
mother passes, and the daughter sees an opportunity to go in. And was he living in the property at the time?
No, this was their secondary home. So they had multiple properties, and this property in particular was here in Florida. And the daughter just took it upon herself to say, "Hey, I'm going to take it." And she filed her probate. Probate was not done proper because, again, husband was never notified. He is an interested party, but you would not know that if you did what you thought you were supposed to do. You went through a title company, you went to an attorney, they reviewed title, you signed off, you paid your money, you received your you're thinking everything is good, which it does look good until someone come up and say, "Hey, wait a minute, I was supposed to have those proceeds. I was supposed to have interest in the property. I wasn't named." That title policy is what's saving that person's behind right now because they did purchase a title policy. So now they don't have to worry about it in the sense that they don't have to pay out of pocket to fix this issue. But title searches, closing don't guarantee that everything in that title is completely good, which is why you have to make sure you have that title policy. Just like having a car insurance. You may not use it all the time, but guess what? When something goes wrong, you get to use your policy. Same idea.
You need it when you need it when you need it.
I need it now.
Yeah. So I would say, Jamil, I think it's a super smart question. We pay out a lot in title claims. So I think it's important that if you are working with any title company, that they have reserves to pay claims, because we pay millions and millions of dollars of claims a year. That's super, super important. When it comes to the rate. So sometimes if you're an investor, a title company will discount like the escrow fee or the title policy. We have a filed rate that actually discounts both for investors, which is super helpful. So you do get a discount. To your point, I have heard some things on the stock channel about people questioning the lender's policy lately, and with rates being as high as they are. And I've heard some conversation about, will there be any concessions for paying the lender policy on title insurance? So I think with our rates being what they are, that's what's spurring the conversation.
I think that's where it's all coming from as well, right? It's just that everything has become a little bit more expensive, and we, it was like a crack in the system, or it showed a little bit of a foundational crack when NAR was sued, and the on the buyer's agent commission came under fire. I think the entire real estate industry was put under a magnifying glass, and they're looking for all the areas where there's expense. And then they're looking for a narrative that can say, or they're looking for a narrative that says, "Hey, this isn't over expense, or this might be overkill, or this might need to get shaken up." Whatever that is, I think that's what's happening right now. And when things like that happen, do efficiencies come? Absolutely, but they usually come with pain in the first place, right? So it's just kind of interesting to see it all shake out. And when the Wall Street Journal publishes an article like that, you think, okay, well, what are you guys trying to do? What's the next step here? What are we talking about?
Yeah, and that should not be one of the things to eliminate when it comes to that. And I think a lot of fear did come from NAR settlement, where now the buyers are thinking, I'm paying a higher interest rate. There's a potential I will have to pay for my own agent fee. Then now the rates are increasing as far as the title policy. So they're always going to be looking for opportunities to reduce the cost, which they should. But at the same time, do not eliminate that title policy. That's not one that should be up for consideration. And even that with the NAR settlement, I think that it comes back to being creative. If you're going to be an investor, you always have to be trying to think outside of the box. You cannot think that, and I think this NAR settlement, it pushed a lot of people to stop being in a routine and stop just having expectations that I don't necessarily have to put in like that elbow grease. You need to work your files. Like, you have to go out and make sure that everyone knows your value. And I think a lot of times you have people who are thinking, I go out there and all I need to do is get the listing, or I just show my buyer a few properties and that's it. No, it doesn't work like that. I think the NAR settlement is definitely going to push a lot of people out of their comfort zone to get more creative.
If the way I see it, right? And I could be completely butt-ass wrong here, and so I would appreciate if both of you call me out on it if I am.
You're more swass today than I've ever seen you, by the way.
but here's my thoughts on it, because a listing agent, if you look historically at the work that's done in a transaction, right? Listing agent gets a listing, right? And then it's like they're like, it's on the MLS, the pictures are there, and they're like, all I got to do now is let my transaction coordinator handle the paperwork. And that it's like that, in my opinion, they're the ones who are stopping the work. Whereas the buyer's agent, they're bringing the money to the table. They should be the ones getting the commission. It's the listing agent that should be under fire and scrutiny as to like who's doing the work here. Because if it isn't for this buyer's agent, where's the buyer? Where's the money coming from? Who's bringing the loan? Who's bringing the pro?
I have a different take. I have a different take.
Let me hear
it. From the buyer perspective, the buyer agent respectfully bring a single buyer to a transaction and they get the fee. They're done. Now they work hard because they show their buyer 1,200 properties because they have no control over their buyer. So they go out and they running up and down the road. They go in different places. Buyer probably not even approved for financing. Yes, to me, the buyer agent is the agent that does the most work. But the buyer's agent is not doing the most work for a single transaction. That buyer's agent comes for one transaction, bring that party, and guess what? They get their fee. Now, they have worked their butts off because they have shown this buyer multiple properties. And that's why I had no problem if the buyer is required to pay their agent. That's okay, because they most of the time going to earn that fee. And they're going to earn that fee by dealing with unrealistic expectations. And they're going to earn that fee by showing multiple properties. They're going to earn that fee making sure that their buyer is approved, speaking with the lender, making sure the entire transaction continues. I think the buyer's agent worked a lot prior to this one single transaction that the listing agent has put their property out there on. But I also think that listing agents have a lot more work to do right now because of the market. The market is not a seller's market right now. So you have to be creative to get someone to come to your closing. To your open house. You have to get someone interested in actually seeing the property. And your listing price means so much more. And you have listing agents who have this unrealistic expectation that people are going to pay like top dollars for their property. Guess what? They're not. And guess what you're going to do? Hold your property on the market, and your property is just going to sit there until you get your butt out and make sure your seller actually have a realistic expectation of what the true market is. And that value is not necessarily what's going on around you. Buyers, this is a buyer's market, which means that the buyers need to go out and they need to understand that they have a lot more power right now to get prices down, because these properties are going to sit there longer and longer because, like you said, the seller's agent lists these properties and they sit back and wait. It's not enough right now. And I think the NAR settlement has a lot to do with it. Fortunately and unfortunately.
You bring up a really good... Go ahead, Gina.
Yeah, I have totally different opinions, but also very similar. So, like, according to statistics, I think it's like a listing agent spends like half the amount of time on a transaction than a buyer's agent, but they have a lot of marketing costs involved to be able to bring the transaction to market, right?
Yep.
Property videos, listing photography, like flyers, all the things.
Lead generation.
Lead gen. Getting the appointment, they're competing all the time for that business. In a case like your sister, she's doing the whole renovation too and managing that before the house goes to market, staging. There's so many different things. It does take a lot more time to find a buyer a home, and it's a lot more actual hours. There are different ways to leverage that as a buyer's agent as well. I think the most important thing is that whatever client you're representing just understands how you're getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
And that they feel comfortable with the amount of money that you're being paid because you're paid to represent them. And as long as you have disclosure around that, then I think you're good. Charge more.
Yep.
Charge more.
Yep.
I think they deserve more. Like, serious. When you think about how many homes that a buyer agent has to go from place to place, they have to make sure finance is in place. They have to make sure everything is in place. And that's not to eliminate all the various things, like you said, the listing agent has to do before they can get the property ready. And putting those expectations from both perspectives, the buyer agent and seller agent, you need to have realistic expectations from your the party that you're representing. And I think that's a big thing.
And I think the difference is too, like, it's just about, like, in the past, buyer's agents haven't really told people, and not all, but because there are definitely some. I remember the first person that sold me a house, I signed a buyer broker in the back of her car when I was, 22 years old, and she's still in business today. And I was like, I'll sign whenever you want me to. And she explained, this is how I'm getting paid. But not every agent does that. So I think it's just important to be able to have the conversation to say, this is how I earn my money.
Yes. And that's important though. Set in a closing today, and I'm listening to the seller was there to sign. And one of the agents told the seller, she was like, I just don't understand. Why do I have to pay the buyer's agent fee? I don't like them. I don't like their attitude. Why am I paying their fee? And her agent said, you have to. It's a requirement. I'm like, no, but like, you might want to explain that a little bit different. Like, no. Let me clarify that. And the agent was upset when I started clarifying. So she's sitting there with her arms folded. And I'm like, see, you're part of the problem, because it's so important for them to understand before they actually list your property. That should have been explained before you even got the listing. She should understand why you are giving the agent a fee. She should understand that even though we're at this position and you don't like that agent, guess what? We have an obligation, because in the beginning of the process, this is what I explained to you, which probably didn't take place. Which approach she probably took is, hey, sign here. This is the commission. This is how it's supposed to be. And I think, again, that is what part of the issue, that people were not aware of how the buyer's agent did. The buyer didn't know. They just know that somebody's going to pay you. And that because you're going to get a fee, I get to tell you what to do. And I get to run you all over the town just to find a house that I figure out I don't want to do it. And I close with another agent, which happens all the time.
Or then they walk into a new build because you never explained it to them.
Yeah.
And then the agent doesn't get paid and there's no buyer broker in place. Like, it has everything to do with, like, setting expectations. And full disclosure. And I believe in that in all relationships, business, professional, personal. I think everybody should have a level playing field.
Yep. Transparency is key. It really
It's
is.
a very, very real stuff. Celena, I have an interesting topic to bring up here. On
I love it when his eyes do this.
Well, you had mentioned listing price, and my mind started going off because I wanted to press the button, because I think that when the listing agent, they're acting as a fiduciary for the seller, right? Which means that they're acting in their best interests, which means that they should be giving that. I think the fact that in licensing school right now, across the country, real estate agents aren't taught how to comp properties, so they don't instinctively know how to value a property. So they are really off on a lot of the numbers. I think that when the agent gets it wrong, or when the agent doesn't talk to their seller, when the seller has unrealistic expectations for price, and the agent doesn't educate their seller as a fiduciary should in their best interest, and they just go with whatever the seller says. Yeah, let's list this for $1 trillion. Sure. Right. Well, if I want to ask you both this question, and then I want to see what the answer is, and then see if there's an opportunity or a position of liability here. But when a house is sitting on the market 120 days, what would you as a buyer think about that house? Celena?
The seller has unrealistic expectations. It's overpriced, and the seller has unrealistic expectations. Absolutely. I wouldn't think anything otherwise. I would not think about title. I would think the seller is not realistic of how much this house is supposed to be, and the seller's been unrealistic to negotiate a real price for it. I have a neighbor right now, purchased the house in last year, 2023, maybe around March, $1.2 million. He did some over the top renovations on the property. He listed the property this year, the end of last year, for $2 million. Now he just purchased for 1.2. Now he's listed for $2 million. I think it was 2.1. That property is still on the market right now, still on the market. And I see people come and go looking at the house, which means to me, the agent is not, and the agent is actually the investor. So he's also the owner. So now that property is sitting there, and to me, the seller does not have realistic expectations. I also think that you keep in mind, and from my perspective, because I have a little inside, you spent too much on the renovation. So even this is come back to what you were saying, understanding your numbers, understanding your market, understanding your numbers. The longer that property sits on the market, guess what? His reality of getting more money is just diminishing. He's probably paying interest on the loan. He's probably losing money because he's staging the house, so he's paying those fees. He's paying additional costs. You're going to be paying the real estate fees. The property taxes coming up as well. So I think that, again, their reality check of how much you're actually selling for, which the market has changed from January to July, is a total different beast. So when he came out at $2 million, I think recently he just dropped another $40,000, and it's still not at the right value, but it just goes to show that expectations are flawed because he did not do the numbers properly. And even if he did the numbers at some extent with some room, he's losing money at this point because the house is still on the market. So what you could have had as a profit is now it's decreasing the more your house is on the market. So setting that expectation is so important, and actually doing numbers, real numbers, from an investor perspective before you actually put the house on the market is important.
Well,
Thank you. What about you, Dina? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Celena, and I think that it's just really important that you are honest with your you're honest when you're in those appointments, and you tell them what the market is going to bear based on the information that you have, and that you are very proactive about price reductions if the house is sitting. If you're not getting showings, I mean, there's a problem with the price.
Yeah, it really is. You can have the best pictures in the world. If that price is not right, it prevents people from even wanting to look at the house. And
so
again,
would you say that high days on market is the market rejecting the price?
Yeah, I would. Mm-hmm.
Would you say that high day on market could indicate to potential buyers that there's something wrong with the property?
That's not going to be the number one. In my mind, that's not going to be number one, but there is a potential that there is something wrong. Could be probate pending. It could be anything that's like behind closed doors can be going on, but that's not going to be the highest thing on my mind. The highest thing to me, from the buyer perspective, I'm advising my clients that these are properties you should be looking at, or these things you should stay away with. And when I'm talking to investors, sometimes the first thing we do is look at how long the properties are on the market, because those are the ones we normally tackle first. Those are the ones that we tackle to say, hey, what can we get? What kind of deal can we strike with this person? Those are the ones that we approach to say, hey, can we do a seller finance? And maybe because since you're holding it so long, maybe you are interested in doing seller finance because you're losing money right now. So why not? That may also be one that's going to be doing a short-term rental. They may be interested in actually participating in a short-term rental. So it's one of those things that when your property's on the market for a long time, I definitely look at them as targets. But again, I'm always willing to take a chance. The worst case scenario is they say no, or they look at it from a different area. I always take a chance. Let's see what happens. The no don't hurt anyone.
Well, and it's so funny. I think that high days on market is an opportunity for investors to do agent outreach at a really high level and build some quality relationships. I just personally called a listing agent. I think it was last week, and I was looking at a house, and I'm like, this house looks amazing. You did the most killer video I've seen. Why has it been on the market for like 120 days? What is wrong with it? That was my first impression. And I was like, how can I help you? Because this house looks amazing. She goes, the house is perfect. And husband and wife couldn't agree right out of the gate on the price, and they should have done what I told them to do, and the house would have sold. And since then, it's just been weird thing after weird thing, and house is showing perfect, and it, there's no title issues or anything like that, but they just wouldn't agree to what she recommended out of the gate, and they wanted to test the market. Well, the market's saying the house needs to get priced lower.
And I think that actually it ends up shooting them in the foot, because what I've seen happen a lot, right? Because agent outreach is one of my primary sources of finding deals and purchasing original condition or distressed condition homes, especially when the market rejects the price at 90 to 120 days, right? I call an agent and I'm honest about it, and I explain, when I look at this house and I see the price that you've got it listed at, the only reason I even reached out to you was because of the condition. When I see a house in this condition, it means that there's an opportunity for me to come and force appreciation. So I ran the numbers, and I come to find out that it looks like it's being priced at what a house that would be fully remodeled would be priced at. And so the market's rejecting the price as it sits right now. How realistic is your seller on that being the case? And do you think they're open to an actual real number at this time? And, it opens a conversation up, right? And I like to use this one analogy that's actually done really well for me, is that, high day on market, it's like a car. When a car has a salvage title, it's kind of stigmatized, right? And it's harder to sell. You get less money for it. I think that high day on market for a property is akin to a salvage title on a car. It's like it stigmatizes the property that there's an issue, whether it be on price or whether it be on condition or maybe both. And as a listing agent, you have a duty to your seller to at least inform them of that. And my line of thinking here is there any potential liability that a listing agent has to be honest with their seller about bonehead pricing?
Well, you don't know what you don't know, right? So you have sellers that have absolutely no idea that the property is being price is overpriced, or that the price is not correct. You don't know what you don't know. So the question is there any type of liability? Probably, but at the same time, the agreement, and even when you're doing the listing agreement, you have an opportunity as a seller to be able to tell them, these are my numbers, this is my figure, this is where I want to be. So the seller still has an option to normally cancel or terminate that relationship. And again, which is why do your due diligence. Get comps from more than one agent. Maybe your cousin, maybe your sister who's your agent, but still get other comps from other agents, because that allows you to be able to determine, is this number right? Is this number realistic? Someone that has no relationship with you, let them run the comps for you. Because again, it's not just the agent sometimes. It's the seller themselves that have this expectation that I want to sell the property for this amount. Like, this is how much I want to receive, and this is how much it should be, because Jim down the road sold his house 2 years ago or a year ago for $2 million. So I should get $2 million too. The market is not the same as it was 2 years
and ago. Also, Jim spent $150,000 remodeling his house, and you've been wiping your boogers in your cabinets for the last 40 years. So there's a huge difference between the quality of home we're talking about here.
Well, people don't take that into account.
Boogers, toenails.
Gross.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know I don't know what's wrong with me today, but
it's the swass again.
It's the Canadian heat, It's the Canadian. Oh, this is great. There's so many. Actually, we have a great chat today. People, thank you guys for joining us. There's been some incredible comments in here, and I just want to kind of go through a few of them here to see if there's any quick rapid fire ones that we can address. Do you think, Celena, that it's easier to get into contract or to do a deal on a probate property once probate is finished, or is it okay to enter into a contract on a probate property prior to probate being completed? That was a question from Dennis.
You can definitely get into a contract while the property is, and that's actually not a bad idea.
I agree.
You get ahead, because I can tell you, once people see, you have people who just go for probate property, so they'll start watching and waiting. Whereas if you're under contract, you can get the court to sign off on a sale while the probate is still going on, because there may be other issues going on with the probate that may prevent you from closing sooner or prevent you from purchasing the property. So Yes, definitely. And if you have the ability to enter into a contract while it's in the probate, that allows you to be able to be in the front. It also allows you to take care of your property. You may be able to purchase before they finish the probate. So yes, don't be steered away from it because it is a probate. That's actually a good thing.
And
Sometimes
I
you need,
think as a lead gen strategy, there's not a lot of people that pursue that at a high level consistently.
yeah, because they read on the internet that, oh, run away when you see probate.
Hmm.
You have to think
I
that's how
100% agree.
I mean, out of
Dina, look
every
at look at
100 agents we do marketing for, I can tell you there might be one that's thinking probate.
most of the files Monique and I bring to your office are probate.
Well, she's one in a very small group.
Yeah. You want to take this comment here because I think it, Dina, this one pertains to title, but and the title insurance. What do you think of this from Tammy?
Yeah, I bought a property and I was missed on a title report. The county tore down her house. Oh my goodness. I'm selling the property and now the title report shows where a prior mortgage was missed. So she's basically saying that she's getting made whole because of something that was totally avoidable. And if not, she would be totally sunk. I mean, she'd still be responsible for that mortgage and have no house.
Wow.
Totally agree. Title insurance is a must. It's a must. I don't think that's an industry we should be putting our sights on. Wall Street Journal. So Jalabi over here said, is it better to be a buyer's agent or a seller's agent? What do you think with all the things coming down right now? Who would you rather be, Celena, in the conversation piece?
Seller's agent. Seller's agent. Again, I love buyers and I love when they come to my office, but I think it's harder for a buyer's agent because they have to show multiple properties and they have to continue to hold their hand throughout the entire process. Again, you may be right when you say the seller's agent is like, hey, did my job, everything is going smooth. And sometimes that's the easier way. Notwithstanding, you still have a lot of legwork to do before you get your buyer. I think it's still better to be a seller's agent if I had to pick a side. But then again, when it comes to the buyer's agent, you're in a good position because once you get your buyer in the contract, most of the time you can back up and just watch things go until closing takes place and walk up and get your check.
What do you think, Dina?
I think it depends on your personality type because I think some people are going to get more reward from serving one clientele over another. And they're just going to be naturally more inclined to be better at one versus the other. I think it's hard to be really excellent at both.
Agreed. Eddie was talking about stigmatized property. Let's just say, like, a murder happens in a house, and how have you seen that kind of affect pricing on the house where the affected crime took place, like Jeffrey Dahmer's house, for instance, right? And then what about his entire block or even his immediate neighbors?
It's so funny. In Coronado Island, there was like a murder a few years ago, and we just every time we were walking on the beach, I'm like, "Oh, that's the murder house," because the husband murdered the wife and hung her from the ceiling. Like I mean, like it's one of the most expensive houses on the island, but I walk by and I'm like, "Oh, there's a murder house."
I think it does have an effect on it, but here in Florida, you don't have to disclose if someone died or got murdered in the house. So if it's not on the news, no one would ever know because you don't have to disclose it. Sometimes you don't know. Maybe it's on the news, like Nina said. Maybe everybody knows that it's the murder house, but if you are listening, you're gonna have to find someone, a very specific buyer at that time, right? Someone who's okay with that, someone who's aware and may see it as a good thing that, hey, this is a famous house that I'm buying, and you may want to market it in that way to show that, hey, this is somewhere that's very famous, and you can take it however you want to take it. But
smart.
It does have an effect on your pricing, I'm sure.
And it definitely affects your emotions because it makes it memorable, right? So why not market it for what it is?
Hopefully you don't
Totally
wake
agree,
up.
yeah.
Right?
Turn it into haunted Halloween house. I mean, you can take the whole thing.
For real though,
this is a mansion.
Turn it into
like
a
this
business,
is a
yeah.
freaking mansion. So
yeah, here would be the best one.
Oh my gosh, Dennis! I love Dennis.
I think with that, that's a great way to end us off here. Celena, first, guys in the chat, would you guys give Celena some love? She came back on the show with your all of you guys had requested her, and she came back to chat more legality with us, wholesale regulations, being creative, how to really manage your title to make sure that you're protecting yourself, doing due diligence, and having awkward conversations with your buyers and buyers agents. Great stuff today. And if you could like this video, leave her a comment. And if you are in Florida, I highly recommend reaching out to Celena Nash so that she can help you with your title work or your as your closing attorney. Celena, how would people get a hold of you? How do people do business with you?
Sure. My website is www.nashreallaw.com. That's real law with 2 L's. So it's real as in real estate. Or you could be like real, like I'm a real, but yeah, it's reallaw.com. Email address.
Real.
She is real.
Email address is Celena@nashreallaw.com. And we're also on Twitter and Instagram as well. And it's just Nashreal Law.
Love it.
This is great. Good job, guys.
Dina, love you as always.
Love you too. I miss seeing you in person today.
Likewise. Well, wish Bobby and I some luck as we try not to melt here in Canada. But guys, we'll be back on Title Talk in a couple weeks. And until then, see ya.
Like the